Good afternoon. All right. So, Senator Capital, hard act to follow, right? Thank you so much for being here and all you do. And I appreciate all the sponsors that are here today, and especially Leah and her team. We're a partner with them on many things, and we continue to look forward to all the things we can do to help with education in this beautiful state. So, for many of you who may or may not know me, I am from Indiana. It's about 313 miles directly west. That's where my family lives, but my husband lives here with me. And first thing you're taught, it's not hurricane, it's hurricane. It's not Kanawha, but it's Kanawha. So I can mess that up quite often still, but the people in West Virginia are just extremely passionate, dedicated, and they're so kind. I have probably one of the most technical groups that I've ever got to work with. I was in Vice President of Manufacturing in Indiana for 19 years. So I've been with Toyota almost 21 years now. And I can tell you that I put this team in West Virginia up against any team as far as how technical they are. So we know we can do it. It's about doing it much faster and doing it much broader. So no doubt many of you throughout your college career, you're planning your professional career, and you wondered, what's it going to turn out? What am I going to do? Did you start out doing what you thought you were going to do when you began your college career, or did it turn into something different? So for zoology, that comes in handy a little bit, up on a hill, I think. But for me, I started out in chemistry. I loved chemistry. I loved experimentation. So I started out going at the University of Evansville for chemistry, and I was young. I made rodnet gas in my basement of my house, which stunk up the whole house. So CO2, you have to know chemistry behind it. When you talk about playing with your daughter in chess and problem solving, those toys that you get your kids and your grandkids early on help really develop them. From Hasbro had the mousetrap. I don't know how many people remember that. It was like a Rube Goldberg. Anything you could do very complex thing to do something simple. But to Legos with now you can do robotics with Legos. So what you do with your children forms you. And I have 2 grandsons. When I buy gifts for whether it's going to be a niece or nephew, I always think about the learning opportunity that they can have with the gift. So they may or may not like me at the time, but I think that eventually they will. But usually it's got to be something fun, and it's got to be something that's hands-on. So for me, applied learning is a big deal. I grew up in a family of 7 children. My mother had her own career. She was a nurse, and then she became an RN, LPN RN, and then she went to school in Alabama from Hopside. That's like 1,700 miles. Every week, drove home on the weekend, and she was one of the first nurse practitioners in the state of Indiana, which was about 40-something years ago. So she was always learning, getting different masters and doctorates, and my dad said if she died first, she was going to have 2 Calvins, one for her and one for her books. And he started a restaurant business in a small town of 1,500 people, which was a high-end seafood and steak restaurant. So talk about risk. There was risk there. But it was successful. You owned it for 47 years. And I started washing dishes when I was 9 years old, before child labor, so don't turn me in. But it was on the weekend, and we had no dishwasher, and the silverware was this deep in the bottom, and your hands would be 5 times the size. But what do you learn from that? When you think about your kids growing up, and when you think about yourself growing up, what do you learn from that? I learned that hard work was a big thing in my family, and that you couldn't call in sick because your dad was your boss. You couldn't be late for work if your dad was your boss. And it's difficult asking for a raise for your dad, but my mom always said, go for it. So with 7 children, they made it work. We're all different areas of the country, but mostly in Indiana, but it's in all different types of fields. So I want you to think about, those things as you're interacting with children and you're interacting with their life and what happens. And what's the story that they're building as you're teaching them, you're involved with them, and some of the things you're talking about, Senator Capito, is being in there with them and showing them that there is a way and there is a purpose. So, I wanted to go into chemistry. I needed to get a job, so I was going to school, got a job. I was a lab technician in a pharmaceutical and nutritional company. I thought, well, that's exactly what I want to do. But I found out it was boring. I thought it was boring. I was by myself doing analysis all the time, loved chemistry, didn't like the job. So when it broke down, I started working on the equipment with a technician. His name was Jim Stone. He'd come up there and he'd help fix my gas analysis spectrometer. And I'm like, hey, this seems like fun. So I kept working 40 hours a week, and then I went back to night school at Ivy Tech. So industrial electronics at that time was now like robotics. And I was the only woman, and this was 36 years ago. She said 700 years ago, I'm saying 701. 701 years ago, I was the only female in this class, and I'm going to tell you, still today, in what we call Advanced Manufacturing Technician Program, which we have currently, there's only 3% females. 3% doesn't, we haven't gotten nowhere, so I give myself an F on that. So we keep continuing to work with the school system so that girls can see that they can do things. And when you look at when I was going to school, so I was going, and when I went to Ivy Tech and I was learning this new language, because I was in the 4-year program. I wasn't in the tech ed program. At the time, tech ed program was drive your tractor to school and work on the engine. Now, I work on engines now and I love it. Work on transmissions, but I know a lot more about technology than I did before. So for me, my passion is about merging into like Project Lead the Way, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But when I was, because I went back to school, I was able to pass this test and get into an apprenticeship program at the place I was at. It's from Pharmaceutical and Nutritional Company. I moved into that. I rotated shifts. And because I was going to school and I was learning the theory, all of a sudden I was working on the equipment on the floor that was packaging or processing vitamins or making cancer drugs. And I could understand the theory because I was applying it. And that is a big, big plus, when you understand the applied learning portion of it. I think it keeps you with a much deeper understanding than you would normally. And that is where my passion started. When we start looking at how do we teach in the schools. The reason I was drawn to chemistry is because I did the labs. The reason I was drawn to electronics is because we did labs. Because I worked with my hands and I could see those two things coming together. How many of our children can learn that way? Much more than if you were just sitting at the board learning the facts and figures and doing the calculations. If we can apply that learning to physical, actual applications that we're using out there in the careers, biomedical, industrial electronics, chemistry, I don't care what it is, I think our kids are going to learn a lot more deeper, much more deeper. So taking risk, like my dad did, helped me think about taking that risk. Being a lifelong learner, like my mom, helped me think about continuing to learn. I never stop learning. You read all the time. You have to read every day to keep on top of things. And when she talked about connectivity, yes, I get frustrated when I'm in the mountains and I don't have connectivity. Yes, I get frustrated when my conference calls get dropped because I don't have connectivity. But I know that there's passion in the state to fix a lot of these things so that we can have connectivity no matter where we're at, and the kids can start understanding how to get applied learning. And each one of them deserves this productive and successful life. These fields in STEM, so Toyota, we focus on STEM. We focus on the education. One of our managers, his name's Jacob Plasters, has been for years working with Putnam First Robotics. They design, they build, they troubleshoot, and then they make it better, which we call Kaizen. And they have been in several state competitions, and I go to see them and watch them, and just the faces of the students. You know, they're figuring out these problems. No one's telling them the answer. They're figuring out the problem, and they're making it better. So these type of learning opportunities help them grow beyond whatever we can teach them. Their imagination is far beyond what mine is, and I get charged up when I'm around them because they're thinking about things that we haven't even thought about. And that's why we like to be with them in the classrooms, because they come into our workplace and they give us solutions to items that we never thought of. We work with WTech, WVU, the Tech, University of Charleston. Recently we had 19 members just graduate with a master's degree. And they do it, they come to Toyota, and our members go between shifts. They go to work on us, go between shifts. We have 81 of them that are enrolled. So we look for ways always to not only help our members grow their school, grow their learning, but also in the school systems. So I wanted you to think about Project Lead the Way. I'm a proponent of Project Lead the Way. I'm a proponent since I've been in Indiana. I'm not saying that there's not other technical programs, but in the state of West Virginia, there's 33 schools. 33 schools. And there are there's 10,500 schools in North America. I have been in Project Lead the Way schools where the students showed me how they developed the whole Wi-Fi system for the school, and they were using it for 10 years. I've been in Project Lead the Way schools where they had developed a RFID, that's a reader system that can be like a GPS tracker for the military. I've been in Project Lead the Way schools where they were developing earpiece, yeah, so like a hearing aid that was generated off the movement, kinetic energy off the movement of your body. They were doing things that they were not doing in MIT at the time. This was 7 years ago. So my passion is to really try to see how we can improve the types of programs like Project Lead the Way or Project Lead the Way itself. Toyota Foundation has provided more than $2 million in grants for this program last year, and it's continuing this initiative this year. And it's important for us to know that there's resources out there for education. There's resources that are beyond the traditional ways of getting money. So I'd like to share with you just a video about how do you start your impossible. How do you start your impossible? Toyota's talking about starting our impossible, and we're talking about expressing ways that we can do things that we never thought could be done in the future. And we can be, as women, can be in non-traditional roles. Because 50% of the workforce are women, 25% or less are in manufacturing. Women can do STEM. Women have to do STEM. We need the diversity of thought. We need to start their impossible with these non-traditional roles.
I read about a woman who used to box around 1914, and I decided if she could do that, so could I.
I think all this talk about girls not boxing is old-fashioned. Girls aren't the delicate flowers they used to be.
When I started boxing, I thought it was impossible that I would get an opportunity to compete in the ring, and then I won the World Championship in 1957. Advice I would give would be give it all you've got and don't be discouraged. My name is Barbara Buttery. I'm 87 years old. I'm a boxer.
So she is just one of many, many people we've featured in some of our Toyota videos of how to start your impossible. And that's really our mantra for this year and going forward as we dedicated ourselves to the Paralympics and the type of starting year impossible that they go through. But I want to talk to the students. I want you to talk to your children. I want you to talk to your grandchildren about non-traditional roles. You know, when CSI came on, how many people know Forensic, CSI, that show? When that show came on, it tripled the number of women going into that field of study. So I keep saying we have to have a manufacturing show has a little twist, a little funny. But we're fortunate that we have a lot of encouragement here in this room for non-traditional roles. We have a lot of encouragement here of people going beyond their normal everyday activities to be able to pursue and help many students understand that there's things that they can do for their career, for the future, that are going to help them. We have many camps, STEM immersion camps, that we do with the Education Alliance. We do with a lot of the different school systems. We do a lot of the robotics. We do a lot of females in engineering. We have a lot of interest in helping whatever school needs help. You know, the real world experience, manufacturing, is just a great opportunity. And over the next decade, according to Deloitte, 2 million jobs are going to go unfilled. 2 million. And we're not even talking about the baby boomers. We're just talking about the next technologies coming down the path. The next technology, when we talk about the coding, when we talk about it, it's not, from a female perspective, you know, I've worked on the equipment. The equipment is not dirty like it used to be. It's not a dark and dingy place. It's a bright place. So if any of you have never come to the plant, I invite you to come to the plant. Our industry is evolving every day. You hear about autonomous vehicles. You know, you hear about electric cars. Here in West Virginia, we're going to make the first hybrid outside of Toyota here in West Virginia in the next couple of years. My team's working on that right now. We're going to learn we're learning right now how to make the motor that goes into it. So it has a lot of technology around the wire itself. That's bringing a lot of different type of learning for us because, you know, basically the engine and transmission has been more mechanical, so we're learning more on the electrical side. So we have to bridge the gap, and we have to bridge the gap of education. And we have to bridge the gap for the students, and we have to continue to inspire them to reach out and start their impossible for more than they can. You know, I've had many challenges, personally and professionally, in this road and non-traditional road. And there's still many days, and I'm sure both of you that are here today, Chief Raider and Senator Capito, know that we're in a room many times when there's no other females. And when I went to Japan for the first time, they had to build my bathroom because there was no women in maintenance. This was skilled maintenance. So I had my own bathroom, which is good, you know. There's no line. There's no line. But someday I want a line. I want there to be a line, you know. So I'm encouraging each and every one of you. And I want you to think about non-traditional roles. And I have one last video I'd like you to show. But I want you to challenge, build the foundation to do your best. And let's continue to work together for the future of this beautiful, beautiful state and the beautiful people that are in there. Start the last video.